Welcome back, everybody. In this video, we're going to be continuing on with our Zelda style combat. If you remember in last video, we made the character just do a little attack and they can attack enemies. But in this video, we're going to be working on combos. So the first combo is a spinning attack, and the second combo is while you're spinning attack, if you hold down an arrow key, then you launch a boulder. I've also made it that if you attack and walk at the same time, then the spinning attack doesn't work. This is just so that it doesn't stop you, because if you see here, I can't move while I'm spinning, and if I try to, then all it does is change the direction in which I will shoot the boulder. I think there's also a little bug which could be called a feature, where if you do it and you hold two directions at the same time, as long as they're not opposing, then you should fire them in two directions, which could be quite useful. But yeah, I'll get stuck in on how I did this. So we're back into the sample town. Obviously, I've now removed everything that I don't need. I should also remove these. Actually, it just says locked, so I don't need to. But I removed lots of things that would take us out of this scene, because things do get complicated once you start changing scenes. But basically, you would just want to put this attack thing, the attach script, to B button, which is I'm using as the attack button, into the other scenes too, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. So, if you can see, when you press B, we change our animation state to the sword, which we did in last video, and then it launches an invisible projectile, and it waits 0.1 seconds so that we can see that the player has a sword, and then it sets it back to without the sword. But now I've added that if it then has a wait for 0.2 seconds, and if one of the arrow keys is held, then it's implying that we're walking, and we should stop this script from running. So this is how it stops the character from walking and doing the spin at the same time. So if the player doesn't press any button, if they're not walking while they're attacking, then we move on. And if the B button is now held down, so if it's still being pressed basically after the original press here, then we can do what's in this part here. So this is where it gets complicated, but I'll try and break it down as best I can. And so this thing here, attach script to left, right, up, and down, and then it also overrides the default button action. It means that we physically cannot move. It locks the player from moving. It overwrites the default buttons, right? So the default buttons are the movement, and we've overwritten those. And the reason why I've done that, and there's nothing on press, is because we don't need there to be anything else on this. It just has to be empty. All this is for is overwriting the movement. So now we can set the animation state back to being the sword, and then in each one of these groups, we have a setting a direction, launching a projectile, which is invisible, just like the original sword, and then it waits for 0.15 seconds. I found that 0.1 was too fast and 0.2 was too slow. Arguably, you would want to have animations in between the four directions and launch the projectile at an angle. You can see here we can choose angle, so you'd probably want to mess around with that, and maybe I can do that in a future episode. So each one of these sets a different angle, and so what that will mean is the player is then putting the sword in the down, and then, so if we actually look at these, you can see we're setting the player direction to down, and this one we're setting it to right, and then I know that this is then up, and then left, and then down again. So if you can imagine that, it means you're spinning around with the sword showing. So as an example, if we hold, it goes down and then right, up, left, down. Okay, so let's just look at that, and then you see that goes down and then all the way around. So that's my interpretation of a spin, and this is just to keep it as simple as I can. There might be simpler ways, but this is basically how it goes. So I'm just going to close these up to make it easier to read. And now we want to set the player back to the default, so that means not holding a sword. And then we're going to remove the lock on the arrow key. So remember, we locked the arrow key so you could play a card move. We've now removed that from the player so that they can actually move again. And now, if we're holding a button, if you see here, I've got left, up, down, and right. Then if we just look at one, each one of them is just a different direction. It's just that simple. So if we're holding right, then we can assume that we want to fire the rock to the right, right? Or we want to move right, and it's like a bonus. It's like a combo. Once we've done the spin, we hold down an arrow button, and it launches the rock in the direction we set here, and it's obviously matching the direction that we're holding. And obviously the reason why we can fire 2 rocks at once is because we can have 2 directions at once for holding both buttons. I've tried holding down all the buttons, and it doesn't work. It only works for 2 directions. And if we wanted it to only work with one direction, we would add a stop script at the end of this. So if one of these is held down, it would launch in that direction, and then it wouldn't move on to the next. While this one, it does move on to the next, so it can have multiple. And as you can see, I've increased the lifetime to 0.5. I've increased the speed. The player speed is 1, so I've made this one 2. I did try it with 3, but I think it was too fast. And so yeah, so basically, if you add that all together, we have an attack, which is obviously just by pressing it. But if we end up holding it, then we get to spin around. And then if we hold and spin and aim in a direction once we've started spinning, we then launch our boulder. And the boulder obviously is just the sprite sheet set to rock. Obviously the collision group is still free and is colliding with 1, so that all of the stuff we set up last time works again. But yeah, that is a very simple way in how you can set up combos in your game. So if you remember, it's all off of one thing, right? It starts at the first button of the combo, and then it checks to see if it needs to do the second, and then the third one is inside that. If I close some of this stuff and go over it again, I can go through it. Okay, so I'll just go through it one more time very quickly just to outline everything, make sure you guys get it. We're going to script attach to button B, so when we press B, we do a single attack, and then waits 0.2 seconds, and if we're moving, then it stops the script, and that's the end. We just do a single attack. But if we're holding B, which is the attack button, so if we're still trying to attack, then it will lock our movement. This one's to lock our movement. And then it will set us back to having a sword. It will make us spin around just by setting our direction and, doing the attack. It will then set us back to normal, and then it will make us be able to move again. And if we are wanting to move, if we're holding a direction, it will fire a projectile in that direction. So that's a 3-stage attack, right? So we've got the single attack, the spin attack, and we've got the projectile launch. And obviously I could have it so if we're holding 2 buttons at the same time, then it will do something else. Or maybe A, B, up, down, left, right kind of stuff. That could be possible. All we have to do is wait for 0.2 seconds and do that stuff. Or have a, attach button, and then it opens up for the next button. And if it isn't the button pressed, then it goes false, right? Maybe overcomplicating it again, but I hope that was helpful enough for some people in order to understand how you might want to go about doing combos. So yeah, I'll put my patrons up on screen. Thank you so much to you guys. You guys are the best. Remember to like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment on what you want to see next and what you thought of this one. Yeah, let me know if you found this useful. I'd love to know if how many of you had figured this out prior to this video. I haven't actually tried this thing before, and it's kind of making me excited to make a fighting game again, like Office Combat. Would love to make a sequel to that with some combo moves, maybe different characters. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.